targeting each other with new strikes. And a warning, some viewers may find the video we're about to show disturbing. It appears to show the moment an Israeli strike hits a TV studio while the Islamic Republic of Iran news network was on the air. Overnight, Israeli officials say 8 people died after Iranian missiles broke through the Iron Dome defense systems in Israel. That raises the death toll to 24 people in Israel since the violence started on Friday. That's according to the Israeli Prime Minister's office. Iranian state media reports that at least 224 people have died in Iran.
This all comes as we learned President Trump opposed a proposal from Israel to assassinate the supreme leader of Iran and would not allow the U.S. to participate. That's according to 2 U.S. officials. Joining us now, NBC News senior national security correspondent Courtney Kube and NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez in Calgary, Canada. Gabe, we'll start with you there. We know you're traveling with President Trump, who is speaking with world leaders at the G7 summit in Canada. He spoke about this conflict between Israel and Iran earlier. What did he say?
Hi there, St. Clair. Well, it's an incredibly high-stakes gathering, and actually, back in 2018 here at the G7 summit in Canada, President Trump basically stormed out of that gathering amid tension among world leaders. Well, this morning he's already spoken with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney as well as the German Chancellor, but he was asked by reporters about that conflict between Israel and Iran. He said that Iran needs to come to the table and strike a deal. Here's more of what he said.
It's painful for both parties, but I say Iran is not winning this war. And they should talk, and they should talk immediately before it's too late.
And there will be another high-stakes meeting regarding another conflict tomorrow. President Trump scheduled to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Kate St. Clair.
Gabe, thank you. Courtney, let me turn to you. So while the president says that he wants to see peace talks between the two, you have some new reporting on how the president supported Israel's strikes after initially opposing those strikes. What changed, and what role is the Pentagon playing in this conflict?
Yeah, and opposing them for weeks before ultimately just a few days ago coming around and deciding that Israel was hell-bent on conducting this massive military action across Iran, and coming around to seeing more of Israel's viewpoint on that. Now, this all started back about a week ago at Camp David last Sunday when the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Kane, presented what he knew about what the Israelis were planning to do in Iran to President Trump and his top national security officials. In addition to that, he presented the options for what the U.S. could do to support or not support Israel in their actions. That was everything from dropping bombs to providing logistical support to doing absolutely nothing at all. Ultimately, President Trump decided to continue to support Israel with military intelligence, but Israel already had pretty good intelligence about Iran. So we don't have any indication that any U.S. directly provided intelligence in advance of this operation it was actually provided by the United States. But it's interesting, the president was also facing opposition from some of the more isolationist members of his inner circle, including those who are more viewed as more MAGA. Kate and Clay.
Courtney, thanks. Gabe, let's go back to you. What more are we learning about Israel's alleged plan to assassinate Iran's supreme leader? And what do we know about what President Trump knew?
Well, it's incredibly interesting, Kate and St. Clair, because of that tight relationship between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Trump. Well, in this case, according to U.S. officials, we understand that President Trump actually rejected that proposal for Israel to assassinate Iran's supreme leader. It may be that the president felt that he didn't want him to become a martyr, but also potentially not to escalate this situation further. Of course, President Trump ran on a platform of not wanting to get involved in any more foreign wars, and certainly it's in the president's interest to have this not escalate. But again, that news that President Trump did oppose the idea of assassinating Iran's supreme leader, Kate and St. Clair.
Courtney Kube, Gabe Gutierrez, thanks to you both.
We are learning significant new details about the man accused of shooting 2 Minnesota state lawmakers.
Vance Boelter faces both state and federal charges now. He made his first court appearance a short time ago. He was captured late last night after what police called the largest manhunt in state history in Minnesota. Boelter's charged with murdering State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband, as well as the attempted murder of State Senator John Hoffman and his wife. The Hoffmans survived the shooting.
Federal prosecutors say he visited the homes of 2 other state lawmakers and planned to kill them. The feds say he was disguised as a police officer and wore a silicone mask. Joining us now, NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster and NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos here in Studio. Shaq, let's start with you. What other new details are federal prosecutors revealing about this case?
Yeah, really, so many chilling details that we learned this morning, but let me first start by noting that initial appearance with the suspect did just wrap up a few minutes ago. The judge keeping him behind bars for this point and also granting his request for a public defender as this goes forward. We'll expect to see him in court later this month on June 27th. But it was this morning that we learned the extent of the plot of what he's accused of doing. Prosecutors saying that this was a political assassination, that it was planned for an extensive period of time, that he did not just go to the homes of those 2 lawmakers, that he actually went to the homes of 4 lawmakers with the intent to kill. And as they searched his car, searched his home, they saw a list of some 45 other state and federal lawmakers representing Minnesota in heard from the acting U.S. attorney as he laid this all out this morning.
It is no exaggeration to say that his crimes are the stuff of nightmares. Boelter stalked his victims like prey. He went to their homes, held himself out as a police officer, and shot them in cold blood.
They say that hours after the shooting, he texted his family saying, quote, "Dad went to war last night."
Danny, let me turn to you. There are state and federal charges here involved. So why is that, and how do you anticipate those 2 cases play out side by side?
They will play out in a parallel fashion, and probably you'll see a lot of working alongside each other as each of these separate sovereigns decide who goes first. The general rule of thumb is whoever arrests or gets possession of the body first, they get to prosecute and even have him serve his sentence before the other sovereign tries him. That's not likely going to happen. As soon as the state is finished with him, he will likely go over to the federal court to be prosecuted there. But these proceedings will go parallel, as they often do in high-profile cases like this.
And Danny, could we see potentially more charges, particularly given that he did appear to impersonate police officers?
Yes, I think it's likely that we will. You may see more and additional federal charges. Any use of a firearm brings up any number of different firearms charges. But the important thing is, for example, the impersonating a police officer is at best a high-level misdemeanor in Minnesota. So it would pale in comparison to the other serious charges that he's facing both in state and federal court.
Let me go back to Shaq. Shaq, NBC News spoke with a woman who believes that she saw the suspect shortly before he was apprehended by authorities. How did she describe that whole thing?
Yeah, she said she was visiting a friend's home. This was a conversation with our colleague Maggie Vespa. She said she saw someone kind of duck as she was leaving her friend's home, and then listen to what happened.
So I waved my arms and I flagged him, and he's like, "Is everything okay?" And at this point I'm shaking. And I said, "No, there's a person. I saw a person. He looked like SWAT team. He was in black." And I said he was in the grass. And as I was leaving the driveway, you could see him squatting in the culvert. And I started pointing. I'm like, "There he is. There he is."
Police say that there were more than 200 members of law enforcement that helped apprehend this suspect, and they also used a drone to find his specific location, guys.
All right, Shaquille Brewster, Danny Savalos, thank you both.
Time now for some consumer news. Oil prices hit an overnight high, but quickly pulled back.
And what's America's go-to music service? Kate Rogers joins us now with today's CNBC Money Minute. Hey, Kate.
Hi, Cadence and Clay. Oil prices are down about 2% on reports that Iran asked through intermediates to press Israel to agree to an immediate ceasefire and resume nuclear talks. Crude prices fell to about $72 per barrel after they reached an overnight high of nearly $77.50 per barrel after Israel targeted 2 natural gas facilities in Iran. WhatsApp announcing this morning it'll be rolling out ads directly on its platform. Now, previously, businesses could run click-to-message ads on Facebook or Instagram that link to WhatsApp, while the platform itself remained ad-free. This move is part of Meta's broader push to monetize the messaging app. The company says ads will not appear in personal chats. And Spotify is widening the gap with rivals as the preferred music streaming app for American consumers. A recent survey by analyst firm Evercore ISI finds Spotify is #1, with a record high 38% picking it as their favorite app. Alphabet's YouTube was second, followed by Apple Music. Back over to you.
All right, Kate Rogers.